Anyway, so I drove up to Glencoe, parked my car, got the waders on, and started walking across the moor to this river. And there was already someone out there, and I thought, I wonder if it's a fisherman. And it wasn't. Another photographer who
Mm-hmm.
also happened to be wearing waders. And I thought, this guy's got the same idea as me. So waded out in the water. I mean, naturally, I got chatting and stuff like that. And the slightly amusing part was, we got said, well, what's your name? And he went, oh, my name's Johnny. I went, oh, nice to meet you, Johnny. I says, I'm Julian Baird. And he went, no. I went, why? He says, oh, I'm Johnny Baird. And I went, no way. He said,
You're Johnny Baird.
you're, you're Johnny Baird. I said, even that, my brother is called Johnny Baird as well. So we got chatting as well. A couple of Bairds in these waders stood in the middle of this freezing river in Glencoe.
I don't know who you are, but welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. Sit back, relax, and listen about cameras, gear, settings, stories, and all things photography. Join Darren on Ireland's Best Photography Podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast, Julian Baird. Julian, how are you, buddy?
I'm all right, Darren. Yourself?
I'm very good now. I'm very good. Are we still allowed to say Happy New Year? Is it going to be too far past? What do you think?
I don't know. Yeah, let's just say yes. So, Happy New Year to you, mate.
Happy New Year to you too. Happy New Year to you. I hope all your dreams come true in 2022.
Well, that would be nice. It's an unlikely, but let's go on that basis anyway.
Yeah, well, you know what? Half the battle is thinking that it's going to happen. So I think we've halfway winning on that battle anyway for a start. So
good positive mental attitude, mate.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I'm really delighted to have you on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to having the conversation this evening. Your work has been something that I've been following for a long time, and we'll get into that in detail during the podcast as well also. So first and foremost, thanks for coming on. And secondly, in case somebody doesn't know, who is Julian? Who is Julian?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be on the show. I've been listening for quite some time now, so it feels a bit of an honour to be on here. So, I'm Julian Baird. I classify myself as a landscape photographer.
Okay.
I live in Devon with my wife and two kids. As you can tell from the accent, though, I'm not originally from the southwest of England. I grew up in Scotland, born in Scotland, grew up there, and I moved down to Devon just over 10 years ago now. So I'm very much settled down here, and I'm a passionate landscape photographer. I really enjoy photography. Pretty well everything about photography, the complete process. I like the planning, the going out there, taking the photographs, processing it, and printing it, and talking about it as well. Hence the reason, probably one of the reasons I'm on this show. I love to talk about photography, whether that's through stories or videos or pictures. I want to try and share some of that inspiration that I get when I go out and take pictures.
And tell me this, you mentioned there you're originally from Scotland, but you're living in Devon. So Scotland is an area that I think, I've never gone to Scotland on a photography trip. I am planning to go in August, actually, of this year. Some people say I'm crazy to go in August. I'm going to the Isle of Skye, so it's going to be, midge heaven. But tell me, do you find a big difference now, like when you're originally from Scotland and growing up, and then now you go and take photographs in Scotland? You're seeing it in a completely different way, I imagine, because you're looking through a photographer's eye. Is that something that helped you to reconnect with the landscape through photography, find your roots and fall in love with that again? Or was it something different?
I think that's partially true. I mean, I've always, even before I got properly into photography, I think when I was very young, as a child, I grew up in the West Highlands of Scotland. So I grew up at the foot of a Munro. Every time I looked out the window of the house, there was a Munro, there's a mountain there. So for me, I guess I didn't appreciate it at the time because it was just there. That was my back door. There was lochs, there was glens, and there's mountains, and in the winter you get snow. So you don't, I guess, learn to appreciate it. And then when I later moved to the city, moved to Glasgow, it was actually a bit later on in my life that I discovered hill walking, and that's when I started to, I think, from a personal level, started to appreciate the landscape. I think that's what kind of eventually drove me into the photography. I was going on these walks, going up these mountains, and having these wonderful experiences, and it was really quite eye opener. And it kind of, I did fall in love with Scotland again, and felt quite patriotic
Okay.
about being Scottish. And then later on, unfortunately, these funny things, I didn't really properly get into photography until I left Scotland and moved down. So all I do now is I spend my days dreaming of mountains and thinking, oh, wouldn't it be great if I was up in the mountains? And it's snowing in Scotland at the moment, and it's just my sister sends me pictures of our mountain covered in snow, and it's really annoying. But I think now that I'm a photographer again, I think you're right. I've discovered a new appreciation for it because I'm seeing it in different light. You know, as landscape photographers, we like to go out stupid o'clock. You know, we get up first thing in the morning, just when the light's breaking through the clouds. So I'm seeing new aspects of the country that I hadn't seen before. So yeah, I'm kind of again reconnecting with it, but in a different way yet again.
Mm. And you know, you mentioned there about hill walking and hiking and such like that as well. I mean, even without a camera, you can enjoy the beauty of the landscape. But when you bring a camera, I think it gives you another dimension because you're now looking at the landscape in a completely different way too. And I think that's where a passion can be really not only ignited, but really fueled by the fact that you're not only witnessing this and breathing in the air and seeing everything around you, but now you can take a photograph of that and bring that back, relive that experience again, smell those smells, feel the temperature that you were feeling that day. If it was raining, you can feel how wet you were or how cold you were, whatever it may be. So do you find that even looking at images from when you're early part of photography and when you got back out, do you find that you've got a connection with those and that you can have those feelings again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look back at some of my some of the, let's call them snapshots, because that's effectively when I was out hill walking. I can still remember the feeling of standing on top of that mountain, you know, and you're right, what the temperature felt like, whether it was a windy, all that kind of stuff. But photography, I think as a landscape photographer, you've got to love being outdoors principally because,
Mhm.
as you know, being a landscape photographer is hard. You know, you have
Mhm.
to go out into these conditions, and if you're going out just in the want to take a picture, and quite often you fail at taking a picture because that's
Mhm.
just the nature of the way things are. You don't go out every time and
Get a
capture
banger.
these
Yeah.
banging images.
Yeah.
You fail more often than you succeed. But I always take comfort in the fact I've had a day out, I've gone out, and I've seen the landscape. So that's really important to me, is having that love of the landscape, and then the pictures, and then actually more recently, since I started doing YouTube as well, you talk about going back and looking at that memory. And what I find is the picture's one thing, but actually when I go back and look at my video, it opens up a whole bunch of new memories. You know, like just the experience of taking the picture. You know, what happened, what, you know, I fell over, or something, or it rained, or a
Mhm.
thunder shower came over before I took the picture. So there's a much richer set of memories there to be had through
Mhm.
this whole process of doing photography and doing YouTube.
And video, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And actually, let's go way, way back. You know, how did you get started in photography? Now, so I mean, you started in hill walking. Did you just have a compact camera or something like that with you starting off, or how did you get started in photography? Where
Well,
did that passion ignite from?
so I mean, you often hear you hear this question asked, you know, of many photographers, and they say, "Oh, I got my father's old camera, and then I went out and I fell in love with it instantly." And I don't have that. I don't have that story. My photography journey is quite elongated, really. I mean, as a kid, I had a little point and shoot film camera, but that's just
As you do,
having
yeah,
fun.
yeah.
I think an interesting photography happened roughly about sort of 99, 2000. I got a little point and shoot film camera that my parents gave me because I was going to Australia for a year. Again, not serious photography in the sense that I'm going out to take landscapes. It's just capturing moments and the things that I saw.
Hmm.
And then I got my first digital camera. It wasn't really till I think about 2007 I got the Nikon D80, and that's when I started taking a bit more of an interest in photography. And now there was that little bit of overlap between, yeah, I'm thinking about landscape photography, thinking about trying to compose my images, and being out hill walking. But then, yeah, it wasn't until I really moved down to Devon, not as a result of moving down to Devon, it's just the way the timing was. That's when I decided that actually I like this and I really want to take it seriously, and I'm going to put everything I can into it.
Mm.
It's been a very long process, not a pick up a camera, loved it. 2 years later, I'm a professional photographer.
And actually, I have a similar thought on that, but I'll ask you the question first. Was there a moment when you went, do you know what? Yeah, I think I could do this seriously. I think I could actually really get into this from the point and shoot. Can you remember that moment?
I can't remember there being a distinctive moment. This is the thing, is that I know people have these moments. They can with some clarity come back and say, "This was the moment I stood in this and I took a picture of that." It was just a gradual progression from being marginally interested to real interest. I mean, I think one of the key moments for me was I got that D80 in about 2007.
Hmm.
That's when I started buying magazines about photography. But I made a commitment to myself when I bought my first full frame digital SLR. I
Hmm.
decided I'm investing a lot of money into this camera because it's expensive for me at the time. And I said, what I'm going to do is I need to take my photography to the next level. I hate
Hmm.
using that phrase, but that's essentially what I wanted to do. And that's when I started investing more um, more money into it outside of just buying gear. So I found a professional photographer that I admire. I started doing some one-to-one sessions and really trying to up my game. So I guess if you're looking for a real turning point, it was that point driven by a bit of gear, but that
Hmm.
commitment that I made to myself by buying that bit of gear that I was going to learn properly how to actually do this, because there's no point in spending that money and just
Keeping it in auto.
yeah, keeping it in auto. Yeah,
And the other side of that too is that when you do take it out of auto and you're first starting out in photography and you say, okay, I'm going to go into, okay, aperture priority, fine, you can still semi-auto. But when you finally go into manual, the frustrations that people can encounter can actually turn somebody off and go, I'll never get this right, and just go straight back to
yeah,
auto again. But it's far more rewarding, as you say, than you say, you know what, I want to learn how to do this right, that you can now control it properly. And I think, the basics, once you get the basics right,
yeah.
it sticks with you.
It's really important to try and stick with. Well, there's never one size fits all, but I think manual is a great thing, because I think some of the frustrations people feel is using the automatic modes. It can be a little bit variable. You can
Hmm.
take two shots in the same
Hmm.
automatic mode, but you'll get potentially different exposures because the camera's metered the scene slightly different because something's slightly changed. So you can get
Change, yeah.
inconsistent results, and that can actually make it harder. So I think using manual to get consistent results and understanding what those settings do is a really important skill to learn, particularly in landscape photography.
Oh, for sure. And even if we think about landscape photography now, I mean, everybody more or less uses a digital camera. I mean, look, we all have a camera on us at all times right now. It's our phone, right? And that's always going to be in auto. But when we think about how digital photography has changed the game, because, just exactly this, you go out into the field, you take your photograph right now, you can look at the back of the screen and go, okay, that's incorrect. I need to change this. I need to change that slightly, or whatever it may be, to nail your exposure. But go back to the days when we had film as an example. You had no screen in the back of the camera. You had to have a separate meter where you could measure the lights, and you had no idea where you're getting it right or wrong until you brought it down to 1 hour photo and you got it 2 weeks later or whatever it might have been. And
Yeah,
you go, 36. Okay, I'm looking forward to opening this. And you see there's 34 of them that have been either overexposed, underexposed, and you've two shots and the composition is off and it's not in focus. And you're like, damn, it's gone.
yeah.
So,
I mean, that's why I feel quite fortunate, Darren, because I never really started doing landscape photography. It was only ever digital, so I never had that pain of having
mhm.
to go through the film. I mean, I did have film cameras, but they're point and shoot for taking snapshots, really. So, fortunately, I've only ever been in the digital world. So
Mhm.
I feel that I feel thankful to have missed out on some of that pain and anguish.
I think so too. I mean, in a way, digital photography has changed the game in total because you can get that instant gratification. You get that photograph, you can see it in the back of the screen,
Yeah.
you can make the adjustments. But if you don't understand the exposure triangle from a fundamental point of view, you're not going to know what's gone wrong.
Well, exactly. You can't look at the back of the camera. You got that instant feedback, and realize it's wrong. You need to know how to not only identify that something's wrong, but how to
Hmm.
correct it. And if you, like you
Hmm.
say, if you don't know that exposure triangle, you don't know how to use a camera, you don't know how to adjust certain settings, you can't correct that. So the speed of looking at the photographs all very well, but you still got to know what to do in order to fix that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you've mentioned there from the outset that you're a landscape photographer, like myself, landscape photographer. Did you try other genres of photography over the years?
Yeah, actually, I mean, back in I think it was about 2013, I was working beside a guy, and he was running a music website doing reviews of albums and concerts and stuff. And we got chatting, and I says, "Oh, who does your pictures for your gigs?" He says, "Oh, no one really." And I says, "Oh, I've got a camera. Uh,
I can do that.
I can do that. You know, total chance in your arm. You know, guy with a camera. I can do that. I thought I could do it." And he said, let's do it. Aye, come along. I'll get you on the list, and we started. And pretty well from there. I did quite a lot of live music photography over the sort of last, I guess 8 years. Less so over the last 2 years for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But really, I found that I started off doing it because I thought it was something exciting to do. But also, you know, most landscape photography is done during the day, isn't it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted a way to use my camera when I wasn't going out shooting landscape. I wanted to be able to practice on my camera, and I thought shooting the gigs and the local concerts was an
Good idea.
ideal way of doing it. And it's a very challenging form of photography, quite a lot of pressure. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you shoot landscape, doesn't work, big deal. You go home or the light doesn't
Mm-hmm.
happen. But you know, you're in there. You've got 3 songs. You got to nail the shot. And what you've really got to learn how to do is use your camera. You've
Mm-hmm.
really got to. You can't be looking at the controls, trying to figure out which one's the aperture again, and how do I change the ISO. You've got to be able to hold the camera up to your eye
Yeah.
and change everything without thinking. So you build
Mm-hmm.
up all this muscle memory, and you understand your camera, and that actually translates quite well into the world of landscapes, because what you can do is, if you're out in the field and you've got quite a dynamic scene going on, there's light changing, you want to change the settings. If you're not thinking about how to change the settings, you freed your mind up from a whole bunch of other
100%.
baggage.
Yeah.
Oh, how do I change it? I don't know. And all that practice has allowed me really to focus on composition. I can look at the scene and I'm not thinking about so much the technical aspects of what I'm doing in my camera. So it's been really beneficial
Mm-hmm.
in that aspect from a landscape photography. But more than that, I do really enjoy it. And I've shot some big festivals like Radio 1 Big Weekend.
Oh,
I've
nice.
shot some big bands like Coldplay and
Very good.
Mumford and Sons and stuff like that. So it's been really rewarding. I don't talk about it particularly much. I don't talk about it on YouTube. There's a small section on my website. I've got a separate section for that kind of photography, but it's more just something for myself. I was actually really hoping to get a couple of gigs done over the next month or so, but they've all been cancelled, unfortunately, again for obvious reasons. So
Yeah.
it's proven problematic to get back into it, but not that
Yeah.
the weather's any better outdoors for landscape. So yeah, not doing much photography at the moment, unfortunately.
Well, you know what you say about doing the gigs. I mean, the advantage there too is that you get to go to a gig. You get to listen to music. You get up close. You know, you're kind of backstage pass per se. Plus, there's music there as well, so you're getting entertained while you're doing this. Now, it depends on the music, obviously. If it's good
Sometimes, yes,
music,
I was about to say that. Is sometimes I've seen some stonkers, some really good bands. I'll give you one of the examples. Mumford and Sons, which I photographed at the Radio 1 Big Weekend. Never really interested in Mumford and Sons. Watched them live, blown away. Big fan now. But I've seen some bands that just left me cold. You know, you do your 3 shots and you're like, oh, shall we go? Yeah, let's just go. And you walk out the door. You've got your picture. So
yeah,
it's a curse and a blessing. But no, it's more than anything, it is a blessing. And you're right. I've seen some bands in some really unique situations down in the pit. It can be really exciting. I've photographed some of the bands that I love the most, like Snow Patrol.
class.
I got to photograph a couple of years ago, and that was a real buzz.
For sure.
Photographing Gary Lightbody. So yeah, it's been quite a privilege.
And you know, something else that comes from that was you're talking about it got me thinking. You know, you're shooting in low light, so you have to know a lot about the settings of the camera. So it actually teaches you a lot more innately without actually going to actually learn that, because you're learning by doing, and you're now going, okay, I'm in this light. You've got a red light, you got a blue light, you got a green light. They're changing constantly. You've got a spotlight. It's a very, very dynamic scene. So you have to be on point, because you want to capture that moment when somebody's catching a microphone or whatever it might be. You need to get it straight away.
You're changing aperture potentially. You're definitely changing ISO. You're changing shutter speed. You're changing focusing modes. You're changing. You sometimes change metering modes as well. There's a lot you've got to change. And like I said earlier, you've got to know how to do that without looking at the camera. You've got to know where the buttons are, and that really helps.
And so landscape is kind of a calmer scene. It's more relaxed. It's at your own time, even though the light can be very dynamic and you can be frantic at time, depending on the time you're shooting. But I don't think it's going to be as fast paced as a live gig trying to capture that moment, because it's the subtleness in somebody's facial expressions, or a certain moment in a song when they're in a certain poise or whatever. They're the kind of banging shots that
Yeah.
you want to get, So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, and the good thing with YouTube is actually, a lot of performances and bands, because of touring, you can actually, if you do your research, which I do, is I've only go and see a band for the first time, I'll see how they do their performances on previous videos, so you can preempt those
You
kind
know
of
when.
magic moments. You can
Hmm.
know when they're coming, so it's good to do a little bit of homework in that sense as well.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, good insight there. Now, an extra bit of a bonus point. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, and something I think is that we think in relation to landscape photography and that it's easy, right, or that it's hard. It depends on what your outlook is going to be. It can be easy because okay, I don't have to pose a rock, but I have to pose a person for a wedding or a christening or whatever it might be. It can be hard because you'll go out in all different types of weather. You might look at the forecast. I mean, I often joke, and probably very similar in the UK as well. The forecasters here have the easiest job. It should just be very simple: cloudy, chance of rain, and that will
Yeah,
cover most of the things that it's going to be. So, with that in mind, like what has been your biggest challenge to date? Now, of course, besides getting up at ridiculous o'clock to get out and get the photographs in the morning, but what has been your biggest challenges in the landscape photography point of view so far?
I mean, the biggest challenge is for me, it's less actually about the photography; it's about time.
Okay.
Time is very uh, precious to me. I don't have a huge amount of it, and it's just trying to find time to do photography, and trying to fit it in amongst a busy working life, a busy family life. I know that's something that you can appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest challenge is actually just getting time to go out. Every now and again, I get to go on a little photography trip, and I find that really freeing. I was just recently on a photography trip, was away for a few days, and I found myself much more relaxed and able to enjoy the photography more, and actually do a little bit of experimentation. So I was
Okay.
able to do a bit of ICM, something I'm not say not that interested in, but just something I've never had the time to
To do.
experiment with.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest limits around my photography aren't the ideas that I've got for photography or the things that I want to shoot, or even the ability to execute those ideas. It's just actually having the
The time.
time to
Yeah.
actually do it. And trust me, I make photography is my number one thing. I call it my full time hobby because it's
Mhm.
virtually everything I think about
Yeah.
all the time. Even when I'm not doing photography, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next, or got a long list of things that I want to do. But my ideas and the number of ideas far breaches my availability of time, unfortunately.
And with that in mind, I suppose with the challenges that we have, I mean, on the flip side to that, what has been your biggest achievements to date? And again, besides managing to get up at ridiculous o'clock to get out.
Do you know what? You talk about ridiculous o'clock, and yes, it is ridiculous o'clock, but it's actually my favorite time of day to get up. Uh, oh yeah, don't get me wrong. When the alarm goes off, it's a
Yeah.
bit of you're like, oh my god, am I mental?
Yeah.
But once I'm up and I've got the cup of coffee and I'm driving off to a location and it's dark still, and I get into Dartmoor and I walk up a hill and I get to the top of the tor, and the light from the sun's not up, but the light's just
Hmm.
starting to come up, and it's just a special time, and
Hmm.
I forget about the alarm clock at that point. I just feel this is great, and yeah, particularly during the summer, alarm calls are 3 o'clock in the morning. It's not pretty, but
Yeah.
I do value this time more than I do actually the sunsets. I actually like getting up in the morning, going out, doing something, taking a photograph, making a video, coming back, having breakfast, having a cup of coffee, and think I've done all that, and now I've
Hmm.
got still the whole of the day to go.
The
So
whole day.
I
Yeah.
I I I, I do like getting up at still 3 o'clock, which is probably just as well being a landscape photographer. But I think in terms of greatest achievements so far, I mean, I think I'm proud of myself for the fact that I've managed to build a small YouTube channel and stuck at it, because you always worry that when you start something like a YouTube channel or a blog or a website, and you think, yeah, I'm going to do this and I will
Hmm.
keep on going. You think, the back of the mind, you think, oh, I might give up. You always get a feeling I might give up. So I've managed to stick at it. Mostly through the ups. You get the occasional down, but I've managed to stick at it. But in terms of my photography, I mean, I've had a couple of images commended in Scottish Landscape Photographer of the Year,
Very good.
which is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm very proud to be Scottish. So having taken out and taken pictures of images in Scotland and then having those recognised in a Scottish Photography Awards makes me really proud. And
Absolutely.
that's probably some of my the things that make me happiest in my photography. And I think also more recently I've started to do some documentaries on YouTube about some photographers and stuff like that. So I'm really proud of the way that those have been turned out and being received. So yeah, it's a lot of these creative aspects of photography. Keep me going.
Absolutely. And, look, you mentioned a couple of things there, and I kind of want to expand in them a bit further, right? First one, if we go back to getting up early in the morning, I think I agree with you as well. I mean, it's very hard to get out of bed in the morning, but I think that you get one up on everybody else by getting up early in the morning, because everybody can experience the sunset. Not many people experience the sunrise unless they're coming home after a night out, or unless that they have to.
I've had a few of those, eh?
Yeah, right. Or unless they have to get up, to get early to travel for work, or they've got young kids and they're up all night, whatever it may be. But to be able to get up early, get out there and witness something that a very, very small percentage of the population is actually witnessing, but never mind say witnessing, photographing, videoing, and getting to experience as well. So that's the first thing which I think is a good point in relation to, the advantages of getting up early in the morning. When we think in relation to, you say about having commended images from an area itself, I think that's a huge achievement as well, because it's recognition of the area. But you being proud to be Scottish, I'm proud to be Irish. I mean, it's very, very similar from my point of view as well, to be recognized in that field. But the final thing I think, and maybe I want to expand a bit further on that, is from the YouTube point of view. And I know we'll get into YouTube in a moment, actually, when we get to part 2, right? But I think YouTube is something which is a very good motivator to be able to do something, because you want to get up, you want to get that content, you don't want to miss out, you want to keep your streak going, and that gives you the kick in the backside to actually do that. But the more you use something, by default, the better you become, and the more comfortable, and then the more enjoyment that you can get out of that.
Yeah.
So, like, do you find that, do you look back on your YouTube videos that you might have made 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and go, Jesus, I thought that was great at the time, but now I'm way leagues past that. And that only comes, I think, from repetition, do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously experience always helps when it comes to creating videos. But when I look back at my earlier videos, I don't cringe.
Okay.
I have changed my presentation style, shall we say, but that's not a change in the sense that I'm trying to be someone that I'm not. I'm actually trying to be more of who I am, and it was quite a funny situation. I had a mate down, Gareth Danks, who's also a YouTuber.
I know Gareth, yeah.
You know Gareth, right? So he's a bit of a character, and I was showing him around my local area, and he was doing the filming, and I was just mucking about with Gareth, having a bit of a laugh, and he was filming it and stuff, and it was just general larking about. And he posted up the video, and someone made a comment on his video saying, "Oh yeah, I watched Julian stuff. He's never like that. He's never like that in his own videos. I don't think he called me wooden or anything like that. And it just made me think, am I coming across well?" And I look back and I thought, yeah, actually, maybe a little bit flat here. So I've that's the only thing I look back as when I look back at some of my older videos. I'm a bit kind of straight faced, and probably because I'm concentrating more. I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Like I say, when you do it in the early days, you're trying to remember all these things.
You're rigid. Yeah.
You're rigid. That's it. That's the word I'm looking for. Rigid. And so I feel that my videos hopefully a bit more of my true personality, but comes through, and I try and be a bit more enthusiastic. But I look back on all my old videos, and they're a great memory. They really are. Even if no one watched them, we all want our videos to be watched. But even if no one watched them, I've got this fantastic catalogue of experiences. I mean, I was looking at one today, going back because I was writing a talk, and I was looking at my video from Harris and Lewis, and it just brings back so many memories of what an utterly fantastic experience it was. So, I like looking back on the old stuff, and there's always stuff to be learned, but certainly not embarrassed by it.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, I look back on mine all the time, and just to be able to see where I've come from and where I am
Yeah,
now. And I mean, the only reason I made my YouTube channel was it started as a laugh with my friends. I was out taking photos one day, and I remember we were watching some Thomas Heaton video, and he did something in the video, and I went, I'll record this, and sent it off to the lads, and they were laughing, and I went, I might try one of these for the laugh, and I
yeah,
tried it in that way. But after I made the first one, I kind of said, you know what I'll do? I'll make the channel not for me or not for my audience, which sounds selfish in a way, because I'm making it for my kids. Because when I'm dead
right.
and gone, they'll have something that they can look back on, and what I did, why I wasn't there when they woke up for breakfast, why I wasn't there, when they were going to bed for after dinner. I was gone. And I think in that way, hopefully it will ignite something in them as well, to be able to see and see where my passion was, because
Yeah.
I'm very similar to you. I live and breathe photography. I mean, it's something that's always there in my mindset. I'm always thinking about that. And an image is one dimension, well, two dimensional. A video is effectively three dimensional, because you've got, you got the sound, you got the motion, and everything else as well. And I love that, to look back. And even now, my eldest, who's 7, he'll want to know, okay, what's happening there on the videos coming out on Sunday, and he'll see me editing it, and he feels, oh, I'm getting an insight into Daddy's video before it even
Yeah.
comes out. You know what I mean? So I think you can probably have a connection with others without even knowing it. But I wanted it that way, and already I'm starting to see that. So I think it'd be probably a good one as well, from your own kids' point of view, to be
Well,
watching that.
it's funny you say. I don't mean to burst your bubble, but my kids used to watch my YouTube videos, but
Yeah.
yeah, less so now. Now that my eldest started high school, she's dad's a sado, so enjoy it while you can, Darren.
Yeah,
That's all I can say.
I've all that sort to look forward to. That's a appointment that's going to come my way.
Yeah, it's inevitable, mate.
Well, you know what? If I can get them out as well to some of the locations that I would have visited as well, I mean, that's another side of things, I think, which
No,
would
it's
be
it's great, and I take my kids out into Dartmoor as well, and we got a dog a couple of years ago, so we do spend quite a bit of time up in Dartmoor.
Mm,
They claim to hate it, but I think deep down they have a bit of fun, and they like to run about.
absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? Speaking of locations, I noticed that you have something which is a very interesting idea. You've got a locations map. Tell me a bit more in relation to that. How did the idea come together? And tell the listeners more about that.
Right, so the locations map, how it came about was obviously got a YouTube channel, got an audience, but I wanted a kind of more not personal connection, but I wanted to create a more dedicated community around the people that follow my work. And I thought the best way to do that is a mailing list, so I can talk to people directly. Because the people that sign up to a mailing list tend to be, for the most part, they're already invested in you. They want to know
Hmm.
more about you. It's a
Hmm.
thing that they have to do. They have to actively go and sign up to a mailing list. So to me, that gives an indication that I am interested in this person. I want to hear more about them. But
Hmm.
equally, you still need to give people a reason to subscribe to your
True
newsletter.
story. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not selling anything. I don't sell anything in terms of my photography system. I don't use a mailing list for that. I just want to be able to reach out to people and talk to people. Because I send out newsletter, and I get emails back, and so it's a really nice way of communicating with people. So in order to try and encourage people to sign up to my email, you need to give them something. And I thought, well, I know. At the time, I think I'd been writing my blog for nearly 5 years. So I had a whole bunch of blog articles and videos covering that 5 year journey. And I thought, well, people can go to the blog and they can scroll through and they can maybe find something. But what if I could put that on a map? So
Okay.
what I did was I painfully went through 5 years of blog posts
Wow.
and used a custom Google map, stuck a pin in it, where the location is, and a URL to that blog article, so people can go to that map and they can say, "Oh, I'm going down to Devon and Cornwall. I can see it. And I can see where Julian's been. I can have a look at that blog post. I can see what he did in that pitch. Oh, there's a video he did there as well. I can watch that. It's just to give people something back and a different way of them being able to find some of the content that's been on my website.
I think it's a brilliant idea. And you know what I'll do, I suppose, in the show notes, I'll put a link as well to your website where people can
Oh
go
yeah,
and,
thanks. Yeah,
yeah.
if people just go to the website, there's a button at the top or a link that says free locations map. Just go there, stick in your email address, and you get instant access to it.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'll be sure to do that. I suppose I'll put it into the show notes anyway. What I'll do there, Julian, is I'm going to take a very quick break. It's been a fascinating first part. I'll take a quick break and I'll be right back after this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Julian, printing. Printing is something I think which is very, very important. Talk to us, I suppose, about your approach to printing.
Yeah, printing is very important to me. In fact, I can't remember exactly how I got into printing. Much in the same ways I can't remember how I exactly got into photography, to be honest. But I don't remember why I decided to buy a printer, but I decided to buy a printer. I went to the photography show. I went to the stand, got a bit of a show bargain, picked up my printer, got it home, plugged it in, printed off an image, and I just thought, wow, it was already one of my favorite images, and then all of a sudden there it was in front of me, and I could hold it up. I thought, it's so much better.
Mm-hmm.
It looks, I'm even happier with it. It's just a much better experience. So pretty well from that point onwards, I've printed most of my work, even the images that aren't so good. I mean, in terms of approach, how I approach it, there's no real secret sauce. There's no magic. There's no special thing that I do. I mean, I try to make life as simple as possible for myself. So I've got a calibrated monitor, so I know I've got the brightness turned down. So a very common problem people have when printing at home is they're using their monitor out the box and the brightness is turned up to nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
So they print something off and it comes out dark. So, having that kind of calibrated monitor at the correct brightness helps a lot. And I've got custom profiles for the paper that I use as well with that ink. So it doesn't really need to get any more complicated than that. So I never really have any problems. So I find an image, I take one of the papers that I have. I normally have about 4 or 5. I use PhotoSpeed papers, and I pick a paper, and people say, "What paper do you use for what types of images?" Whatever paper you want. So I'll grab a bit of paper, put it in, print it off. What does it look like? Maybe I'll print it off on another paper. So I try not get too hung up on, this is how I do it. I like to enjoy my printing, much in the same way as I like to enjoy my photography. I don't want to make it too onerous and complicated. I just want to print images and watch them come off the printer and enjoy them.
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting approach to it, because it's a very relaxed approach. It's not a stressed approach. You know what you need to get done. A very good tip there, turn the brightness down on the screen, because I've had that exact same issue. I'll get an image all done, print it out, it comes out dark, and I'm like, okay, hang on a second. So I have to go in and adjust the exposures or whatever it may be. But in natural fact, it's not the exposure, it's my screen that's setting it off wrong. And then you go through a fortune of ink. And then you kind of go, Jesus, man, this is useless. I'm after wasting all this paper, which is costing money, ink. And it turns something which should be a pleasure into a pain.
Yeah, and printing should be a pleasure, and it is a pleasure. It's just a couple, like many things in life, just need to be a little bit of preparation, get your monitor set up. I mean, even when I did my first ever prints, it was a Canon printer, came with some Canon super glossy paper.
Okay.
Profiles were already there for me. So what I do is stick the paper in and print it off, and I get a brilliant image. So it's just a little bit of preparation, and it doesn't have to be particularly complicated at all.
Yeah, I must say though, one thing that frustrates me about printing is I don't print that often, and when I do print, I go through having to clean out all the heads and everything else, and it takes ages then for the printer to go through all that self-calibration. All of a sudden you go ink levels, okay, and then you go, okay, hang on, every time I want to do that, I'm and then when I eventually get to print, I'm like, I'm out of my light gray or whatever it might be. That's where I find the frustration, because I don't do it often enough, I suppose.
Yeah, you've got, and the approach I take is, people leave comments on printing videos. My photography is not good enough to print. Well, that's not the point.
Oh, people are saying that. Okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so people, people do say that about my photography as well, but it's a whole different conversation. But yeah, people say, I'd like to get a printer, but my photography is not good enough. Well, that's not the sole purpose of printing. I don't just print a 5-star image I get every 6 months. If I'm lucky, I get a 5-star image every 6 months. But I don't wait for the absolute banging image to say I'm going to make a print of that.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll normally do is I'll go out, do a shoot, process my image, and then regardless of whether it's okay, good, or really good, I'll make a print, and then I'll stick it on the wall behind me, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll just leave it there. And I much prefer to look at my images in printed form, and you learn more from a printed image than you do on the screen. You spend more time looking at
Yeah.
that print. And I'll give you a really good example of what I'm doing at the moment. Is I came back from Iceland, took a whole bunch of photos, as you can imagine,
Mm-hmm.
and I managed to sort of cull them down to a set that I would process, and I processed them all, and I was still left with a lot of images, and some of them look quite similar. I don't know what to do. I'm feeling a bit lost. I don't know how to decide which ones are really good and
Mm-hmm.
which ones are just good. So I thought I'll just print them all off. So I just printed all these photographs off. So I've got all these scenes, for example, Vesterhorn, they're all behind me at the moment.
Yeah.
But what I've found is by having them printed off, even I can look at them even more objectively, and I'm starting to go, actually, that is a better image because I'm looking at one side by side, and I think actually that is a better image than that one. That is composed better, or that one's got better light. And that process of printing all your images, good and bad, can help you be quite objective about your photography and to learn and understand what's working and what's not working in your images. So I'd always encourage people, if they get a printer, just print everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
people, well, what about the cost? Well, yeah, ink's not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But if I look at my photography as an expense overall, it probably cost me £1. But it costs more in the paper than it does in the ink.
Mm-hmm.
But it probably maybe cost me about £1.50 to make a print.
Mm-hmm.
I spent more on petrol getting there.
Yeah.
It's actually in big context of how much photography costs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a cheap hobby, by the way. It's the cheapest hobby you could ever have. Like.
I hope no one's listening. But the actual the creation of the print is actually a relatively small cost, and
yeah,
that's why I embrace it so much. Just print, and I think you'll learn more about your photographs that way.
And something else that comes to mind from that as well is, we mentioned about the advantages of the digital era, but this kind of goes full reversal, because by printing it, you're actually creating something from away from a digital screen. And we live in a world where we're constantly going things very, very fast.
Yeah.
If it grabs our attention, even our own stuff, it's just going very, very quick. But you can actually take the time to sit back, to study an image as you walk past it. I'm looking at the images behind you here, and like straight away I'm looking and going, okay, Vesterhorn, it looks beautiful. Okay. I can see the beach in Vic and such like that. And I'm saying, yeah, geez, they look like lovely images. But when you're walking past them every day, you can pick it up and you can look at it in different types of light. You can take it with you. You can study it. You get the tactile feel as well of holding something in your hand. And I mean, I remember when I did the podcast with Adam Gibbs and Thomas Heaton, I was talking in relation to the adventures of books, because you can sit back with a book and immerse yourself in a book, but try to do that on a phone for an image. It's gone in the blink of an eye. So I think there's a lot to be said what you said there,
Oh, and people appreciate prints. I mean, going back to my music photography and the chap that I've been working with, I made a book for him to celebrate. I think we've been doing it 5-10 years, whatever it was, and I put a collection together of all the photographs and all the venues that we've been to.
Okay.
And I gave it to him as a Christmas present. He was like blown away. He was like, "Oh, this is amazing!" I know I've seen all these pictures. I've published them all on my website. But actually, looking at them in the book just all brings it home. So, yeah, the book, the printed format of the picture is, while we've all gone digital, this is one thing that probably shouldn't be a lost art in this physical world.
Absolutely. And I suppose with that in mind, you mentioned there in a second about, you'll print most of your images just to see what they're going to be looking like, so you can touch them, feel them and such like that. Do you take special consideration then when you're in the field, knowing that you're going to print an image? Do you do anything differently knowing that you're going to print the image thereafter? Or has it just become part of your work process or your photography process overall?
Yeah, it's just a natural extension to my photography workflow. Obviously, when I take a picture, I think, oh, this might look quite good as a print, but it doesn't. There's no need for me to change what I'm doing. I'll take the picture, go home, process it in exactly the same way. But again, because I've got that workflow sorted, I don't need to do anything special either at time of capture or post processing. So I can go through my flow, hit print, get the print. So I like to keep things as simple as possible.
Yeah, job done. And I suppose, speaking of print as well, you mentioned about photo speed. I was at the photography show in 2019, and I saw you give a very, very good talk. It was really honest, it was really open. And I think it was something that a lot of people could relate to in the way you were presenting and such like that. But you were talking as well about your passion for print. Like, I know I was supposed to go back in 2020 and I couldn't go because of that. 2020, I think it was virtual. 2021, it happened in September.
That's right.
Yeah. So, like, do you enjoy events like that, and do you miss the photography show?
Oh, I love events like that. So I've been every year to the photography show. Obviously, like you, it wasn't there in 2020. I did go in September there. I was going even further back than that. Before it was a photography show, it used to be a show called Focus and Imaging.
Okay.
Much smaller show, still at Birmingham. And I went to that as well. But yeah, I do try and go every year. I'll try and go again this year. We are now in 2022. So
We are,
I
correct.
really enjoy them for a whole bunch of reasons. I just like going about. I love photography, so I like looking at the stuff. It's a great opportunity to meet people as well. You speak to a lot of people online, never get to meet them, so it's really good. You get to bump into people and have a chat, and also I do love a good show bargain. It's one time a year where I maybe spend a little bit too much on stuff that I probably didn't need. Saying that, I did buy a printer, so that was a worthwhile investment. I considered. So yeah, no, I really do. I really do enjoy it.
Yeah, the time I went there, myself and Diarmid, the host of the podcast at the time with me, we had a great laugh. I mean, it was great fun. We went around as if we were the big knees coming over from Ireland. We were interviewing loads of different people. I even got to use some Zeiss lenses after that, because we went up talking to the Zeiss stand and went, "Oh, we'd love to have a use off the lenses." And they went, "Yeah, sure thing, no problem. We'll send you over." And I was like, "Wow, okay." And I think from that point of view, it was a real eye opener for me of the plethora of suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, the different types of products that you never even thought existed. And there they are. You get to touch them, you get to feel them, you get to see these things that you could dream of that, phase one as an example. I'll never get to buy a phase one. Okay, well, I can look at one or whatever it may be.
Pick one up, yeah. Again, it's that connection you can make with people. So I've met, spoken to lots of people online. There's a lovely person called Ellen Bonus. She does these photography guidebooks. I've been speaking to her in email for a bit and done some stuff in the books and on videos. And it's the first chance I got to speak to her was at the show, and it was just really nice getting to speak to her. I mean, I think maybe some of that was come on because we've all been in lockdown, so actually just getting out and talking to people it feels all new and exciting. But you're right, actually, and you discover these new products and you just get to chat to people. Because, as you know, being a landscape photographer, it can be quite a solitary pastime.
Yeah,
and we probably value that solitude a lot of the time. But it's good to get together every now and again and just talk rubbish. And sometimes about photography as well.
That's
over a beer.
That's exactly it. I remember I met Mally. I'd spoken to Mally a number of times, and then I met Mally at the show, and it's like as if I'd known Mally for years, and James Burns and stuff like that. There was a number of other people that I met that day, and these are memories that would stick with you from the people, the laughs that you have, the crack that you'd have. Crack in Ireland is the Irish word for joke, not cocaine, but
no, it's the same in Scotland. So
okay, there you go.
With you.
But
international,
for the international audience, we're not going and doing copious amounts of crack, as in what you would call, but it's copious amounts of fun and jokes and stuff like that. Yeah, not at the photography show. But like one bit of advice I would give to people is if you suffer from gas, just make sure that you do have a kind of a tight seal on the wallet, because all things shiny are at these shows, and it can be very easy. For us coming from Ireland, it's a bit more difficult because you can't bring it back on the plane to come back over home. But if somebody can travel there by car, be careful, because you could fill up a boot.
Don't go with an open wallet. I always go with a plan of what I'm going to buy, and then I hope I get a bargain for it. But I've never gone there and on spec and just purchased something for the hell of it.
For the laugh,
Touch wood so far, anyway.
So far. 2022 might change that. 2022 might change that. Yeah. So I think we touched earlier on, I suppose, Julian, in relation to your YouTube channel, like what made you think about moving and from a photographic form into a video form to document these things? was it something that you had said, you know, I'm going to give it a go because I want to do this, or I'm going to give it a go because I want people to see that? What was the motivation behind setting up the YouTube channel? And then, as you say, keeping it going, because you've been very, very consistent in keeping that going over the years. So tell me how it all kind of started out. Did you know what you were doing to start?
Not really, no. I mean, where it really started was I made a decision that I wanted a website, somewhere to put my portfolio. I call it a
Mhm.
portfolio, but back then, let's say the photographs maybe not being quite portfolio quality, but that's a different thing altogether. So I wanted a website, and one of the things you do when you get a website, obviously having a website is really important for a photographer, because you're going to have your own home. That's what I
Mhm.
always say. Have a
Mhm.
website. Use social media. Use those platforms, but I always use them to drive people back to my website, back to my
Yeah.
home, back to where I'm in control of who
Mhm.
sees what. So anyway, I wanted to start a website, and I thought, but the thing is, you want to keep a website up to date and fresh, and you can't do that just with a portfolio page,
Okay.
because you
Yeah.
don't get portfolio images. Like, hey, you
Mhm.
might get 1, 2, 6 a year if you're lucky. So the common thing behind that was you do a blog. I thought, fine, I'll write a blog. That's quite easy. I can do that every week.
Mhm.
I can go out and I can write about my adventures. I can share the pictures. It doesn't have to be a good picture. I can just say, this is a rubbish picture. This is why it's rubbish. This is what happened.
Mhm.
And it was only a few weeks into that where I thought, actually, I could probably add video into this. And it may be a cliche these days, but I think I just discovered Thomas Heaton.
Okay.
And I did get quite inspired. He was doing a lot of the Lake District stuff, and he was telling stories about his local landscape. And I didn't want to replicate Thomas, but I felt I was inspired enough to thought video would be an important thing to do. But I've got my own story to tell. I'm
Mhm.
in my own different part of my own photographic journey at the time. I'm shooting a completely different landscape. I've got a whole different approach, and I thought, yeah, this would also be complementing the blog quite well. I was enjoying what Tom was doing. I thought I could give that a go. So I started. Like anyone else, you start with 0 subscribers, with nobody giving a flying monkeys about what you're going to say, and then just build it up. But like the blog, when I started the blog, I made a commitment to myself. I thought, I'm not going to be one of these people that writes a blog, gets about 3 months into it,
And then stops.
tails off. I said, I will write a new blog post come hell or high water every week. And I actually stuck to that for 5 years,
Wow.
every week,
Wow.
without fail. And it's only just recently I've taken my foot off the gas
The
just
gas.
a little bit. Um, and the video has just been a natural extension. So I haven't I haven't done a video every week, but I've done a north of 170
Wow.
videos now. But what keeps me going is principally I enjoy it.
Mhm.
I've got lots of ideas, and I love sharing my adventures, and it's just good fun.
Mm.
And I get a lot of nice feedback, a lot of community from it, a lot of interactions. So yeah, you've got to be able to enjoy it though. It's hard work, as you know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
some of the skills get easier, but it's quite often your skills get better, your ideas get bigger. So, yeah, it's hard work, but yeah, I enjoy it.
And you know, I think the other side too is that it's another dimension to your photography, because a number of people over the years would have said to me, "Geez, Darren, how do you do it? You know, I mean, you're going out and you're taking your photos. So does that distract you now that you have to do the video and you got to set the second camera up? You're carrying more. You got to think of what are you going to say. You got to talk." But you kind of get used to it, and
Yeah.
it kind of becomes part of your flow and such like that. So I mean, it's a good thing. I think I enjoy doing the video, very similar to you for that reason. But like for somebody that hasn't watched your channel, maybe tell us, what can somebody expect from your YouTube channel? What's your
I think
elevator pitch for your YouTube channel?
I think at the core of my channel is hopefully remained the same, and that's just about me sharing my photography adventures. I'm not there selling books or calendars or workshops. I'm just a person with a camera going out and trying to convey that passion, and really trying to inspire people through the various types of video that I do. So for the most part, you'll just find me wandering about Dartmoor, trying to find compositions and taking pictures.
Okay, okay. And on your channel, you have a quite a mix of different topics and such like that. I mean, you know, you do gear reviews, you do your vlogs, you give some great tips and such like that, and how to be able to take the photographs, etc. Of that, What do you prefer? What's your favorite part of your channel to make?
I mean, without a doubt, the favorite part is actually just being out in the landscape and shooting videos. You're right. I do a few other things. I do the occasional gear video. Probably done more gear in 2021 than normal, probably because
Hmm.
it wasn't out as much with the camera. Again, for obvious
Obvious
reasons.
reasons. Yeah.
But I think certainly my approach for gear is I try and, where at all possible, uh, mix it up with landscape photography. So you very rarely see me in the house just talking about gear and test charts. I'll try and be out in the landscape doing landscape photography, and perhaps talking about a bit of gear that I've just purchased. Let's try and make the content uh, appealing to a wider audience. And people don't always want to hear about gear. They might want to see about photography. So I do try and balance it out. But I find the gear videos they're quite hard and quite stressful because they are a lot more work. 'Cause you have to convey a lot more
Hmm.
information. And then some of the other videos that I love photography books. It's a big passion of mine. I've got a big bookshelf there behind me. So they're the kind of videos that I do at home. So I like to share what photography books that I've bought and tell people about them because I think books, like we talked about earlier, a great source of inspiration. But yeah, really, my favorite type is just when I'm outside because I love being outside, and
Hmm.
that's it's my happy place as I call it. So they're the videos that I
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
producing the most.
And you also have something on your channel as well, which is your 5 minute photo adventures. And I really like that idea. I tried it when I first started my channel because I wanted to keep the videos as short as I
Yeah,
possibly could because a lot of work to do. But you're kind of encapsulating them in what to expect. I mean, the difference I think with yours is, it is 5 minutes or thereabouts. I
yeah.
mean, I remember looking at time when, Peter McKinnon, one of the biggest guys out there, 2 minute Tuesdays, and it was never 2 minutes, it was 10
No,
minutes,
it's
12
never
minutes,
2 minutes,
20,
was it? No.
none. But you're a 5 minute photo adventure. And I think that's a very interesting form because people, as you say, time is precious. So, I mean, if you look at a video and you go, okay, I want to watch something, I've got 10 minutes. Okay, I'm going to watch this. Or if I want to watch something, I see it's 25 minutes long, I'm not going to watch it now. I'm going to
Yeah,
watch something else later. So tell me about the 5 minute photo adventures.
yeah. I mean, where they started was. Uh, there's a bit of a trend. There's always been a trend of producing longer and longer content video. I mean, you see some videos now half an hour to an hour long, which I do enjoy myself. But I think if you're going to do a long video, you have to have a real story to tell. Yeah. You either have to be in a big long adventure, or you're trying to communicate a complex idea. And quite often, I'm not trying to do that. I'm more often not on Dartmoor, just out in the morning. I've got an hour before going to go and do something, so I'm just going to take for. I can't make a 15, 20 minute video out of an hour's worth of shooting.
Hmm.
So why try and elongate it? Why not I just and I want people to come along with me on the adventure. So I'll just create a 5 minute video. Here I am. This is what I'm going to do. Oh look, this is what's happening with the light. This is how I'm going to take the picture. Taking the picture. Oh, brilliant! I'm way home now, and that's all it needs to happen. And uh, I, there's no point in trying to make a video more complicated than it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they're nice and easy for me to shoot. I'm not thinking of complex themes or even themes about the video. It's just a true reflection of I'm just going out and shooting the video. And like you say, people sometimes only have 5 minutes. So you can literally sit down with a cup of coffee, watch a video, perhaps get inspired to
Hmm.
visit a location, or even if you get inspired just to go out with your own camera, job done.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think we touched on it there a second ago, and I kind of want to get a bit further in relation to it because you have made some interesting videos about books, and I think that is something that I'm really much so. I'm similar to you. I've got a bookshelf there which has a number of different books that are there, and I look at them on a regular basis. But tell me, why is your passion so much about books? And I know you probably won't be able to give me an answer in it, but do you have a favorite book that you go to very often? Do you find yourself being drawn back to one in particular?
I do have a favorite book actually.
Okay.
Funny you should say. I do have a favorite. I've got a lot of great books. I've got. I actually like to look at lots of different genres of photography. While my passion is taking landscape photographs, I love photography. So I
Hmm.
love looking at photographs. So I've got all sorts of different books up there. I've got a lot of landscape books, but I've got books of music photography, portraits, lots of different genres of subgenres of landscape photography. So I've got some really good books there. But the one book I actually keep going back to It's someone that I discovered completely by accident, and I'm pretty sure you've interviewed him. That's Norman McCloskey.
Oh yeah,
And
Norm,
I
yeah.
think actually this is how I discovered your show, actually, because I think I was following Norman and he posted up that he was going to be on the show, and his book on Bearer,
Bearer.
that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
I think is absolutely stunning. I think it's an absolute masterpiece. I don't want to call it understated, but it's a really, I don't even want to use the word simple. But its composition and the images in there are just beautiful. There's not pages and pages of banging sunrises or epic things. It's just beautiful landscape scenes with subtle lighting and very carefully done compositions. I just think it's a masterclass, and it just reminds me of the types of images that I want to take. I mean, I like taking a banging sunrise, and I do enjoy that, but it's a great lesson for me to show that you can create really compelling landscape photographs from things all around you without necessarily having the great condition. So I often get that book out and I look through it. I can't wait for. I think he's got a book called Kingdom coming out soon.
He does.
I cannot, for the love of money, get a copy of Park Life, which was his
No.
previous book. I even asked him, "Have you got any Park Life?" He says, "No." But he promised to contact me if he comes across any. But I think that's one of my favorite books, just for the sheer quality and style of the photographs.
It's a brilliant book.
And it's a well laid out book as well.
It is.
The front cover, the gold leaf, and the way he's got the contrast and images, and it's been well thought out in terms of
well curated, and the forward by Neil Jordan as well, I think, is really really good. And I mean, I have a personal connection with that because Beara is in my county, which is in Cork, and I think Beara is an area from a photographer point of view that is completely underexplored.
Oh, I tell you, I am ashamed to say, Darren, I've never been to Ireland.
We'll have to fix that someday. We'll have to get you over.
Great shame in life that I've never been, but getting that book, just it put it on the map. I have to get there someday because it just looks. It reminds me a bit like Harris, that kind of true wilderness,
raw,
such a variety. Raw, that's a great word. Yeah. Variety of landscape, and I think it would really appeal to me.
Well, I just on the topic of Beara, I suppose, just as a side note, when we were on lockdown here, we couldn't go anywhere, and then eventually we could travel within our county, and the first place I went to was Beara, and I discovered something which I never even knew existed, but it's the highest or the tallest waterfall in all of Ireland and the UK, and it's in Beara, and it's called the Mare's Tail, and I never even knew it existed, and there it is. On my doorstep, and I mean, and that's the thing, I think, because Beara, you could get lost in Beara for such a small area. It's just a peninsula, but such beauty there, and it's raw beauty. And again, it doesn't need the banging light. It's like as if the landscape has a texture, and you can see that in Norm's book, and I think he's done a phenomenal job in that. Norm is a great photographer, and when you do come to Ireland, not if, when you do come to Ireland.
It's definitely a when, yep.
Yeah, you'll have to go and visit his gallery as well in Kenmare, because some of the images that he has in there are absolutely phenomenal. He's a
supremely talented photographer, yeah.
Yeah, and he's a very nice guy as well to boot, which makes it even better, I have one final question for you before I go for my last break there, Julian, right? And it's a question that I've only started introducing the podcast in recent times, and I think I'm looking forward to getting your answer in relation to it. And it could be quite of a topical question, I think. Is it the photographer that creates the image, or is it the scene that presents itself?
That's an interesting question. I don't think it's a one or the other, but what I would say as an answer to that question is the scene has to be there in the first place. You can't create a photograph of nothing. People will argue this point, which I'm sure they will do as you ask this question on future podcasts. But for me, I think the scene has to have something. It has to be able to present something that you want to photograph, and then it's then the photographer's job to use his camera to capture that through the composition or weighting of light, what he includes and what he excludes from the frame. That's where the photographer comes in. But ultimately, the scene has to be there in the first place. It's got to present something. It's got to connect with you. It's got to speak to you, and you say, "I actually want to take a picture of that," and then it's your job to capture that image.
Very good answer. Yeah, very good answer. Very good answer. Okay, well, look, on that bombshell, I'm going to take the final break and I'll be right back. I do have 3 staple questions I ask every guest, and I'm going to ask you as well exactly the same question. So I'm looking forward to your answers on those. We'll be right back after this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you're very welcome back to the final part of the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Julian, like I say, I have 3 questions I ask every guest. First question: a funny photography story. What's yours?
Well, yes. I don't know if it's necessarily funny, but I guess it's more of an amusing anecdote. I mean, as landscape photographers, we tend not to meet people very often due to the unsociable hours. So, and let's face it, most humorous things happen when you're with other people.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually, I was up in Glencoe. It was a few years ago, and I had this shot envisioned in my mind, and I knew I was going to have to wade out into the middle of a river to get it. So I thought, well, these aren't going to suffice. So I borrowed a pair of chest waders from my father-in-law. Sorry, not chest waders, just normal waders. Anyway, so I drove up to Glencoe, parked my car, got the waders on, and started walking across the moor to this river. And there was already someone out there, and I thought, I wonder if it's a fisherman. And it wasn't. It was another photographer who also happened to be wearing waders. And I thought, this guy's got the same idea as me. So waded out in the water. I mean, naturally, I got chatting and stuff like that. And the slightly amusing part was, we got said, well, what's your name? And he went, oh, my name's Johnny. I went, oh, nice to meet you, Johnny. I says, I'm Julian Baird. And he went, no. I went, why? He says, oh, I'm Johnny Baird. And I went, no way.
You're Johnny Baird.
You're Johnny Baird. I said, even that, my brother is called Johnny Baird as well. So we got chatting as well. A couple of bears in these waders stood in the middle of this freezing river in Glencoe in February. So yeah, more of an amusing thing, but it just shows you strange things can happen when you get chatting to be a very, very nice chap. And I had a good
Was he from Ireland?
Do you know? I think he might have been.
Yeah, Johnny Baird. Yeah, I know Johnny Baird.
Do you know Johnny Baird? He does quite a lot of. He did quite a lot of Astro.
Yeah.
It's him.
He's elusive now. We're looking for him. We haven't seen him with a camera in his hand for months.
Yeah,
that's amazing. That you.
Yeah, so I met him there. It was just funny that he happened to be a Baird and he happened to be wearing waders and standing in the same river at the same time. I thought, what are the chances of that?
Coincidence or what? Yeah. Huh? Or fate? One of the two.
One of the two. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Second question: what gear do you shoot with?
I am an old Nikon man. So I started out shooting Nikon when I first we started thinking more about photography a bit more seriously. So I currently shoot with the Nikon Z7.
Okay.
And I've got a Nikon ZFC as well. That was principally bought as a video camera, actually, despite its retro styling. But as it's turned out, it's been a very handy second body and takes very nice pictures in its own right. I've got 14 to 30 Z-mount lens for that. That's really my go-to landscape lens.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fantastic. A great improvement on the old 16 to 35 for the F mount.
Mm-hmm.
I like shooting a lot of stuff wide, so that's why it's my kind of go-to lens. Just recently got the 24 to 120 f4 lens from Nikon.
Nice.
So that's going to be my other lens, and that's pretty well going to be the two lenses that I use with the Z7 for doing almost all my landscape photography. I'm a big fan of renting gear when I need it. So,
good idea. Yeah.
On the odd occasion, I will perhaps need something a bit longer. I'll just rent it. So if I am going on a photography trip for a week, I'll just rent a lens. There's no point in me spending £2,500 on a 70 to 200 f2.8 when I'm not going to use it. So I'll just rent it. So the 14 to 30, 24 to 20, 120 are my go-to lenses, both native Nikon Z mount. I do have a macro lens. And I've got a couple of Viltrox lenses as well. They're kind of third-party prime lenses, but I mostly use those for video these days.
And what legs do you sit it all on? What's your tripod?
My tripod of choice is the Getzo.
Nice.
And you'll be pleased to hear that, Aaron, because I do listen to your show. I treat it with the I don't treat it with a huge amount of respect.
Okay.
So, like most of my equipment, I look after it, but at the end of the day, it's a tool,
Yes.
and I will quite happily stick those Gitzo legs into a sandy beach
Oh, I
and
haven't
get them
yet.
covered in salt water. It probably makes you cringe, I know,
Yeah.
but it's got quite a few chips, dents, stuff in it, but it still works. And I just wash it off when I get back, and it's survived. I've had it for a good few years now. Photography show bargain, got a hefty discount just as
Oh
well.
yeah, gas is strong on that one. Yeah,
gas is strong on that one. So it's a great bit of kit. But yeah, it's a tripod, so it's fallen over, dropped it, stuck it in the sea, everything.
And final part then is, what do you put it all in? What bag do you use?
Just very recently, I've bought a Shimoda Designs Explore V2 30. I bought that bag principally because I was going to Iceland and I needed something that was carry on.
Mm-hmm.
It was my first international
Mm-hmm.
trip. So yeah, that's what I did have an f-stop bag, a bigger f-stop bag, but that's when I had the digital SLRs and bigger lenses and stuff like that, so I can get away with a smaller bag. But the tripod isn't my VSP, by the way.
Oh yeah, okay. Go on, tell me, what is your VSP?
My VSP, and the thing that I wouldn't leave home without, no matter what the legs, is a geared head. I am a massive fan of the geared head. That is my one thing that I can't live without. I don't get on with ball heads. I love geared heads. I love the precision of them. It doesn't matter whose geared head it is.
Okay.
I've got my current geared head is one from a company called Sunway Photo.
Yes.
Got a GH Pro 2. Very nice bit of kit because it's got built-in leveling head, so you can do panos with it as well. But yeah, geared heads wouldn't leave home. I'll use any tripod, but I want to have a geared head on top of it.
And do you find it a bit heavier than it needs to be?
It is heavy, but I've graduated. So I started off with the Manfrotto geared head.
Okay, which is
might as well always weigh as heavy as the moon.
Yeah.
Then I moved to the Benro, which was quite a bit lighter, and I've subsequently moved to the Sunway Photo, which is lighter again. It's more compact, and I think it's only now. I think it's about, I say 600 grams. It's in or around that area.
Okay.
So yeah, it's small, compact, and actually has more features than some of my previous geared heads. But I don't care what geared head it is. I live with any as long as I got one.
Well, I was only thinking about them recently. I was wondering, should I get a geared head, from that exact reason that, you can be precise. Once it's locked in, you're locked in. You're not going to mess around in relation to it. The head on my Gitzo tripod, I absolutely hate. I just think it's a disaster. And I've started to look at different head now that I can utilize. And I was looking at the Sunway actually, and I was thinking, okay, should I do it? Should I go for it? But I kind of want to think about it a bit further, because it's a commitment, number one, to be able to do that. And number two, I suppose, when you think, okay, the cost, you're going to have to make sure that you know what you're doing, because it'll be difficult to sell it thereafter, because it is a small market, let's just say, for a resale point of view, So interesting. VSP.
It is a bit of a learning curve, particularly that Sunway one, because it works slightly differently from the other two that I've had previously. But geared heads in general, they seem like a total faff at the time, but once you've spent a bit of time with them, you'll never go back when it comes to landscapes. Just that ability to change one axis at a time. And if you're like me and you like to be quite precise with your compositions, because Dartmoor can be quite messy, so you're always thinking about what you're including and what you're excluding from the frame, and just being able to adjust it bit by bit just to get maybe in a rock in the right place, rather than just releasing a thing and then moving your ball head about and
trying to get it back.
I'd never go back.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Well, Julian, we have almost reached the end of the podcast. I think it's been a phenomenal conversation. I've really enjoyed getting your insights into, your approach to photography. Two final things to ask you. Number one, what's next? Besides coming over to Ireland, but what's next? And where can people find more information on you?
So what's next? So the plans for this year, obviously, just carry on with the YouTube channel and the website and producing content. I'm working on a long-term project on Dartmoor.
Very nice.
Very much inspired by a chap called Nick Livesey.
I know Nick Livesey. I don't know him. I know of Nick Livesey. Yeah.
And I actually did a documentary about him about halfway through the year, and he said something that really connected with me. and he said, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but he loves Snowdonia. That's where he lives. That's his passion. But he says you can't claim to love something unless you know it, and that means everything. You know, the language, the culture, the history, the people, and he has invested his entire self into that area of Wales. And it made me think. So I say, you know, I love Dartmoor and I love going out and photographing it, but how well do I know it? Actually, I don't know it that well at all. So how can I claim to love an area if I don't know it? So my long-term project, which I have no idea when the end date is about exploring more Dartmoor, but more than just the photography side of it. I want to learn more about particularly the geology of that area and the people that work there, the people that work there now. I'm really trying to expand my knowledge to get a proper appreciation. So that's going to be a long-term project for me that I will spend quite a lot of 2022 doing. I hope to do another. I mentioned a couple of times some of the documentaries that I've done. I'm hopefully going to be making a documentary about quite a high-profile landscape photographer this year. So we're just in the early planning stages of that. So I'm really excited about doing that. And then I guess in terms of my own sort of personal photography, touch wood. I've got a trip to the Faroe Islands coming up in a few months' time.
Very good.
And yeah, if it all gets a bit less COVID-y, perhaps a little trip to Ireland. It's always at the back of my mind, Darren. It's never that far away.
It's not that far away anyway. So
it's not that far away anyway. Yeah, I've kind of got to go up the country. I've got to go into Wales and then across, or I can fly. So
yeah, you can fly too.
That's what I'm. More of the same, but I've got these projects and documentaries.
Sounds interesting
to work on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward now to continuing to following your journey. Anyway, you know, I think it's been fascinating so far, and I think, you know, for somebody else who wants to follow your journey, where can they find information on you?
It's, as I said earlier, it's all on my website. That's my home. So they go to julianbaird.com. They will find links. They'll find all the content there, all the videos that I do, blog posts, pictures, everything. But there'll be links there to all my social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, all the normal Twitter, etc. So that's the home, and you'll find everything else from there.
And I'll bang it all anyway into the show notes as well, so that people will be able to find those as well. Julian, it's been phenomenal. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to chat with me. Hopefully I'll meet you in person someday soon anyway. And I look forward, like I say, to continuing to follow your journey. So thanks a million for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much, Darren. I really appreciate you asking me on. It's been a real honour. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Until we talk again, Shlong the Fold.
Hey guys, if you dig what you're hearing, why don't you jump over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and don't forget to share with your friends. With all that done, we'll see you next week, and remember, keep shooting.